Thank you, President Betty. It's my pleasure to introduce today Katrina Lewis. Katrina received her Bachelor of Interior Architecture in 1998 and Master of Regional and Community Planning in 2001 from Kansas State University. She has taught design studios at the college level since 1998 at Kansas State University in the Department of Interior Architecture and Product Design, at Chongqing Jiangsu University in the People's Republic of China for 1 year, in Afghanistan at Kabul University for 2 summers, and in Bangladesh at the Asian University for Women for 1 year. Katrina's scholarly interests include teaching methodology, especially in the beginning design student, international educational experiences, cultural exchanges, and study abroad, plus the intersection between design and social justice. Her creative outlets include travel, reading, and photography. Katrina received the honor of being selected as a Rotary Peace Fellow for Professional Studies in Peace and Conflict Resolution at Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok, Thailand, from June to August of 2012. Katrina explored theories of peace and conflict resolution, analysis and intervention strategies, and application of stakeholders in society during the fellowship, and earned her Rotary Professional Development Certificate. The fellowship was a life-changing experience, shaping Katrina's desire to create a stronger link between design and peace, and she will tell us more about this experience and subsequent ones now. Please welcome fellow Rotarian Katrina Lewis to the podium.
So I attended the Summer Peace Building Program at Middlebury Institute for International Studies in Monterey, California from July 27th to August 14th of this year. The 3-week intensive peace building course focused on bridging theory and practice for academics and practitioners. The topics range from economics to development, politics, structural violence, weapons, social justice, the environment, trauma, reconciliation, resilience, and even covered culture, religion, and gender. For my presentation today, I'm going to give you an overview of my summer experience in Monterey, but I'm going to first step back and talk about what I've been doing to bring you up to date on just different things I've been doing. So I'll cover what I've been doing since my first Rotary presentation to you back in September of 2010. Then talk about my summer peace building program and that your club helped sponsor, and then wrap up with my final thoughts on where I hope I'm going to continue to be going with this knowledge in the future. If you remember, Summer, my sister, as you know, and I gave our first presentation to you back in September of 2010. That was 5 years ago. I was actually surprised about that when I started to prepare this presentation. Summer and I had just returned from a year of teaching at the university, the Asian University for Women in Chittagong, Bangladesh. It was their first year as a university. Summer was on her way to her Rotary Peace Fellowship in Australia, and I was in the process of being encouraged by Bill Richter to apply for my professional certificate as a Rotary Peace Fellow. As you know, I was accepted to attend the Rotary Peace Fellowship at Chulalongkorn University in the summer of 2012. The Professional Development Certificate was an opportunity to learn about peace and conflict resolution in 10 weeks in Thailand. There were 4 learning modules and 2 field experiences to northern Thailand and Cambodia. The 3-month program gave me an opportunity to encourage a deeper and more meaningful interaction between practitioners of global peace, academics, and design professionals. This type of learning environment inspired ideas that I was able to apply to my classroom teaching. And my teaching challenges now my students to consider how they promote peace, understanding, and justice through physical design. In February of 2013, Summer and I presented Rotary Peace Centers and Rotary Peace Fellowships for the first Rotary Peace Forum here in Manhattan. We discussed the application process, her master's Rotary fellowship experience in Australia, and she was actually Skyping in from Australia that day. She was still down there. And I talked about my professional development certificate and my experiences in my application to my teaching at K-State. Later that year, I became a Rotarian, first with your club, but because of my teaching schedule, it was very difficult for me to attend weekly meetings. So in September of 2014, I joined District 5670's Heartland of America E-Club. And so we meet weekly online at 8 p.m. on Tuesdays, and so that's really nice scheduling for me. Then in 2014, I gathered information on our Rotary Peace Fellows, and we have 4 of them. We have David Kozar, Summer Lewis, myself, and Viva Yanni, and created an exhibition entitled Fellowship for Peace, and that was held in my college's exhibition gallery. And your club sponsored that exhibition, so thank you very much. Even though I'm a member of another club now, I do participate on your peace planning committee once a month with Bill Richter, Rebecca Gould, and Stephen Graham, and Ike. And so I was part of the planning committee organizing the second peace forum this past May. Then finally, Summer and I were invited to attend the Rotary Peace Symposium in Sao Paulo, Brazil this past June. It was an incredible event. We got to meet and reconnect with so many Peace Fellows and Rotarians. Summer and I were blown away by the impact that our group of committed people to peace can have. It was just absolutely inspiring. And so what you're seeing here is that there was a unconference that Rotary let us organize just for Rotary Peace Fellows, and that was the day before the Rotary Peace Symposium. And so we got together to connect and network for a day. And what's come out of that is some of the Peace Fellows are working with some of the issues that are coming up with Europe, with the migration that's happening currently. So we're all connected by email and we keep together. So it was a nice event. But before the Rotary Convention, our Rotary International always holds a special symposium on various topics each year. And this year, one of the symposiums was on peace. So there was over 80 of us Peace Fellows out of almost 1,000 that are currently been through the programs. So Summer did 2 panel sessions, and I was a volunteer helping out to move people from one event to another. And so it was a really confusing convention hall, and so in the morning we were over here, and then in the afternoon we were over here. So there was a group of us that made sure people could get from that area to that area, and it was going through like 4 buildings, so it was just like, so I became known as the direction girl. I had like a big sash, so. Then Summer and I attended the Rotary Convention from June 6th to the 9th, and we were excited about the breakout sessions and the emphasis on peace and all the Rotarians that we met and reconnected with. And so here's actually a photo of me finally. I prefer to be behind the scenes, whereas my sister seems to be a little more introverted than I am, and so I prefer taking the photos. So, and as you can tell, Summer's a superstar because in the House of Fellowship, they had her photo plastered there, so she got a lot of recognition for that, just by different Rotarians when we were walking in between sessions. So finally, we're up to date and ready to talk about my experience this summer with the 2015 Summer Peace Building Program at Middlebury Institute of International Studies in Monterey, California. This is what I did in July and August with your support, my department support, and my college support. It was an intensive program designed to bridge theory and practice of peace building in societies that are emerging from conflict, violence, and war. I'm going to break it down into some chunks for you to better understand what we were doing. There were 17 students, 31 classes, 34 assigned readings, and these readings consisted between 10 and 100 pages, and those weren't even the recommended readings, so we were doing a lot of reading at night. And then we had 5 field trips, 16 academics come in and talk to us, along with 6 practitioners in 2 places in California. We started off in Monterey, and then we ended up out at Mount Madonna. It was 10-hour days with 3 sessions typically a day, Monday through Friday, in 3 short weeks. To say the least, it was very intense, as you can tell by the schedule here. But it was an amazing experience, one that I'm able to tie into my research and my teaching at Kansas State University. And as I said previously, the topics range from economics to development to reconciliation to gender to culture to religion to trauma to justice to weapons, the environment, structural violence, and politics. I found it very rewarding to be back in the classroom, learning new knowledge and confirming knowledge from the Rotary Peace Fellowship that I did in Thailand through exploring various aspects of peace building. The academics and practitioners were not only giving us theoretical and conceptual information, but they took it to the next level and were really conceptualizing what we were doing and in the real world and how these problems, situations, and solutions were applicable. All my colleagues were really interested in my background and my field of study of design. I had lots of interesting discussions on what they thought the implications of the design field and peace meant, which has given me a lot of ideas on how to talk about promoting more designers getting involved in peace building. And I'm going to share several examples from my time in the Summer Peace Program. For example, Dr. Richard Matthews' Natural Resources, Violent Conflict, and Peace Building session was focused on the trends that we're facing and shaping our century currently, from rapidly changing demographics, dramatic shifts in the global economy, to game-changing technology, global environmental stress, raising cost of public health, new security challenges, and turbulence in governments. These wicked problems are complex and very multidimensional, so this takes very many different disciplines working together to create viable solutions. He even concluded his lecture with the point that it's essential that more planners, architects, and designers are needed in the peace field to help solve these problems. Dr. Susan Hirsch wrapped up her morning session on justice and law in post-conflict settings with memorialization. Memorials are one way that people remember an event or a conflict, especially if justice hasn't been addressed by society. And so I shared the example of Maya Lin's Vietnam Veterans Memorial and the conflict that actually came around her proposal in Washington. The process of creating a memorial can not only address conflict, but it can actually cause conflict with various associated groups, from the survivors, the public, and the government. When Maya Lin's design was selected by a national competition, many felt that her design proposal was too abstract, not representative of the veterans, and there was so much opposition to its construction. Luckily, it was built. And more importantly, in the end, the memorial represented and continues to represent a larger process of trauma, peace building, and healing. One more example is Dr. Jeff Knopf talked about nuclear weapons and global security and the number of nuclear weapons that are still in use in our world today, but also the ones that have been decommissioned. And so I kept asking myself, what do you do with these spaces after they've been disarmed? And so I started doing a little bit of research, and there's those out there that are actually redesigning old Cold War missile silos to be retrofitted into housing, which illustrates what can happen to space that was designed for one use, such as the nuclear war, and after the conflict, and what it can be actually start to happen when it's adapted to another. The field experiences made the theoretical knowledge practical, which have direct implications to what I teach. For example, we visited a not-for-profit outside of Salinas, California, that were training students that had had previously some type of gang affiliation and were trying to move away from violence and better their lives through a VOTEC curriculum. I kind of compare it to Job Corps. And we visited their newly built transitional housing that the students had built themselves at this ranch. And here the architects actually designed the interior hallways to actually be wider than typical residential hallways to help avoid having the possibility of residents actually touching each other while passing. And so this one small physical design element can help to proactively eliminate future conflict between two opposing groups that are having to live within a space together. Chief Kelly McGlynn gave us a tour of the Salinas Police Department and talked about police legitimacy and procedural justice, which right now is a very hot and current issue in our country. And we saw how the space limitations of the existing 1950s building affected their operations. For example, they used a closet for their fingerprinting room for people that were coming in. He told us a story about helping a soldier through a window on a day when the police department was closed. And so the soldier had driven like 6 hours to process some paperwork for the military. And so he was luckily in his office, and he saw this soldier looking very dejected walking away, so he called him over, and they passed the paperwork through, and we were able to get it, everything worked out. So, but according to the proposed building renovation that will be started in the upcoming year, this sort of interaction will not be possible. Instead, the proposed design will push the community even further away from using massive structural elements, fewer windows, and being set back even further from the street. This illustrates how buildings and constructed spaces respond to historical changes within societal violence. And my final example is journalist Julie Reynolds talked about justice and violence, the prison to street connection, and we visited the Salinas Valley State Prison. I don't have any photos of that, and they don't allow camera, even a phone in there. So this visit raised many ethical questions that my profession as designers of the environment are starting to talk about. Should we be designing solitary confinement cells and death chambers? Julie and I had several lengthy conversations in person, and we're continuing these via email since my return. And she plans to Skype in and talk to my graduate seminar students and help facilitate a discussion about what it means to be a designer, and asking the question, do designers design peace or do they create violence? Along with in-class lectures and 5 applied field trips in the local community, we worked on teams of a project identifying and addressing a real-world challenge. My team of 4 partnered with the International Rescue Committee and tackled the conflict over migration and Ethiopian water wells using the information we learned in our classes. So IRC has been working with communities in Ethiopia since 2000, providing greater access to water and sanitation, improving hygiene, and developing sustainable livelihoods. And so the premise was we had designed a water program in the Somali region of Ethiopia to improve access to water, but this water would actually add conflict among the stakeholders. And so my team, we researched all the stakeholders and started to examine what the interest and position of each of them were, and then we came up with a list of recommendations for RIC. It was a challenging endeavor. I learned a lot about how other professions actually focus on answering a problem, seeing the issue through a different lens, And there's always those group dynamics that continue throughout your life when we're all working under a deadline with lots of little sleep. So toward the end of the 3 weeks, we were asked to do a self-reflection on the challenges that we may face once in the field. Prioritize the interventions and then consider your strengths and challenges that you face as a peace builder. I reflected on my experience in Afghanistan in the summer of 07 and 08. I reread an academic paper that I wrote in 08 on my Afghan teaching experience and reviewed a lot of files and photographs that I had documented this experience with. By doing this reflection, I was able to apply theoretical knowledge to my practical experience, considering what should have been prioritized differently. And it reinforced the strengths of myself, that I'm a very flexible person. I can be a listener and very versatile under stressful situations. The challenges that I struggle with is, where do I as a designer fit in? When I consider the complexity and the urgency of many heavy issues in the field of peace and conflict, including health, education, gender, and violence, I do sometimes wonder if there's room for design. But to solve these wicked problems that I mentioned earlier, that are so complex and multi-dimensional, solutions are going to have to be multifaceted from many disciplines working together to create viable solutions. So to wrap up, I found it very rewarding to be part of this first summer peace program. It renewed my ambition to continue to challenge my students to consider how they promote peace, understanding, and justice through their design. The connections and knowledge I gained this summer in Monterey not only built upon my Rotary Peace Fellowship, but is transforming my teaching and the development of my students and my dialogue with peace and design. So you may ask, what's next? Summer and I submitted abstracts for the Rotary Peace Conference 2016, and we're both asked to present this upcoming January in Ontario, California. I hope to continue what I started with the Rotary Peace Fellowship in Thailand in 2012 and continue this further knowledge from the summer to continue to transform my teaching and my profession, and I hope to update you soon on my future endeavors. In closing, I'd like to thank you as fellow Rotarians and your club for your generous support of my summer endeavor in Monterey and all your past support of Summer and I with our Rotary Peace Fellowship. Thank you.
These two ladies are just amazing, as you can see, and all of us are involved in this process. So thank you, Summer, Katrina, for sharing. Is there a holiday and appreciation?